another episode of Grit inside Manhattan Beach Studios. I'm Victoria Dennis alongside Meg Burgdorf, and coaching legend Anna Collier is with us here today. Hot topics.
Hot topics.
Here we go. We're diving into NCAA beach volleyball. Of course, there's rule changes, there's scholarship, money is involved. Walk us through it. Where do we even start?
Yeah, that's a great question. Where do we start? I'd like to start with the impact of the class of 2025. And I'll speak basically to beach volleyball players. So a rule change that's on the books has not been rubber stamped yet. The courts have to pass it. But each team is now going to have a cap of players. And the number for beach volleyball is 19. Most programs carried 20 to 25 in previous years. So why it impacts the 2025 is because if those were, let's say, 5 recruits coming in, it took your numbers to 22 for the 25 season. Now you had to make some tough decisions. So some of the 2025s got calls from their coaches indicating that, hey, right now we're not sure what's going to happen, but we'll be over the cap if we bring you in. So some of these players were told your verbal commitment is no longer valid, and we're releasing you to go ahead and look to other schools. And that to me is a shame.
And this is all stemming because of the lawsuit that happened with the NCAA.
Right.
And the money that is now being distributed, you can opt in or opt out. Can you walk through A, B, and C for us, why this is even happening?
Well, House versus NCAA for this particular section, the NCAA lost, and now it's all about revenue sharing for the athletes. The athletes need to get a piece of the pie. The athletes need to get some revenue because that's what's generating revenue. Let's be true on this. So once that happened, the NCAA was like, okay, well, this is going to be a large sum of money. So in order to, a couple of things, stem that money a little bit, we're going to put roster caps on all sports. It's not just beach volleyball. So that in the revenue sharing, if you carry 19, now you can have up to 19 scholarships. If in football you have 105, you can have 105 scholarships. Well, that seems like, oh, that's great. A lot more money. Well, you can only have 105 for football. Football carried 121. So what happens to those players? Beach volleyball, like we said, had 20, 25. Now you have 19. What happens to those players? So if you opt in, that's it. You can have as many scholarships up to your roster size. If you opt out, then you stay where you were. And I believe for football, that was 85. For beach volleyball, it was only 6 scholarships. Now, another piece of this change is the difference between a head count scholarship and an equivalency. An equivalency means you have a full ride. I'm going to give Megan 10%. I'm going to give me 50%.
Gee, thanks. I'm only worth 10.
And I'm going to give you the rest. That's an equivalency. And those were really the Olympic sports, track and field, swimming, beach volleyball. And before, indoor volleyball for women, basketball, football were head counters, which meant you could only give a full scholarship. Well, if you opt in, you can have as many scholarships as you want up to your roster cap. And now they're all equivalencies, which changes everything, like everyone now can get a piece of 10%, 20% or whatever. So that kind of explains why someone would opt in. Big school, big money. Yeah, I want to give more scholarships.
And that's usually around a football school.
Yeah, I would say, those big 5s, big 4s, the big schools. If I was to theorize, I would assume that some of the other schools, mid-major, would maybe opt out and only stick to where they were so they could have a larger roster cap, according to the school. Right now, they're not falling under the rules of roster caps, but they can only have 6 scholarships.
And to know, I believe it has to be an athletic department decision, not an individual program decision at a university, correct?
Exactly. Like beach volleyball can't opt in, and then football opt out, and then swimming opt in. It's a department. You come in as an institution or you come out.
So
Why would you want to opt in or opt out?
I'm thinking if you have money, you can opt in. You want 19 scholarships, right? Like, let's get as many girls as we can on scholarships, some money, equivalency money, right? I mean, that's what I would think. And I don't know if you're opting out, maybe it has a little bit more to do with that kid that wants to be part of something. The
walk-ons.
Yeah, the student athlete, that walk-on student athlete, in my opinion now, is going to lose that opportunity.
Right.
Because are you as a coach going to take a risk on somebody that's, maybe they're great on the court and maybe they're great in the classroom and they're so good, but they're not going to play for you? So I think some that would opt out are thinking, okay, we want more on our roster. And if you look to baseball and some other sports, sometimes they need more to scrimmage, to simply run a great practice. And for me, 19 in beach volleyball, we're kind of a pair sport. 19,
right?
Like just with the 19, one kid's always sitting out, right? It's like your mom said, don't hang out with 3 people. Somebody's always out. Well, if you're a para sport and you got 19, somebody's always
right,
out.
And you can't even scrimmage right now.
Right,
you can't have
you
the
don't
10
have
to
a
10.
10 to 10. So again, I think those are some of the reasons you opt in to have that money for your student athletes. You opt out because it's, you're not a big school with tons of money.
Right. And realistically, okay, do you think any beach volleyball program is going to have 19 full scholarships? Like, what do you think the reality is?
Yeah, I do not see, but again, I'm not in the game anymore and not talking to those top administrators, but I would assume, if I was to guess, that maybe they would go from the 6 to 10, maybe 11, but I really do not see any, and I'm talking USC, UCLA, I don't see them going to the 19. I just don't see it. A lot of money. That's a lot of money. Like, also, you went from 85 to 105 in football. There's some money, right? You went from, I can't believe, I think it was 15 in track and field to 45. So you got to distribute that money throughout your sports. You're not going to go all the way to 19 in beach volleyball and then stay at 85 for football.
Right. Sure. And talking about distributing those scholarships, do you think there's a risk that beach volleyball will lose some of their partial scholarships to maybe indoor volleyball? Or even talking about men's indoor volleyball, they're losing some. I mean, what's the impact potentially for volleyball and beach volleyball?
Well, there's a big impact. You can even go to Title IX. Right? So if you go from 85 to 105 in football, I use football because everybody understands football. Even if you're a beach volleyball fan, I'm sorry, you watch football. That's a lot more money there. Okay, so Title IX implications. So equal opportunity, where are we finding this money? Do we cut men's sports? Do we add women's sports? Where do we find that, that balance with equal opportunity? So yes, you might have to fluctuate a little bit within the department, within the sports, on where you're allocating those scholarship dollars. Because I'm assuming football, basketball, they're going to take as many as they can get.
Right. So you're a coach in an NCAA program right now, and athletes are kind of protected. Athletic departments are protected. There's not really a union for coaches. So what do you think these coaches are going through, and what advice, as a former coach, would you give to them to help navigate? How would they advocate for themselves without a coach union present?
Well, I think coaches should do 2 things. One, I'm always the athlete coach. So I think having those tough conversations with those athletes that you're now saying, I'm sorry, I can't bring you in right now. We don't know what's going to happen. I think you have to help them. I think if they say, okay, I was coming to SC, obviously I'll use that as an example. I don't know what to do. I think that coach number 1 should be in the loop, calling other coaches and going, hey, do you have room? This is a great student athlete. I really thought this would be great, but here we are. So I think that's number one that they should do, is take care of that athlete. Number two, I think they should organize a little bit more, because the NCAA has basically said coaches haven't really come to us and said, hey, let's go slowly. Let's not rip the Band-Aid off like you're doing 10 years of legislation in 1 year. Like, it's just flipping everything. And if you organize a little, maybe, and again, which is better? Your mom always said, rip the Band-Aid off, and you're like, oh no, could you peel it? I don't kind of know. So if the coaches got together, first of all, make a decision, because it's going to happen if it happens, if the courts approve this.
And we're looking at April, mid-April.
Right, April, I think April 17th. And then it's, got to start August 30th. So organize and find out, do we want to rip the Band-Aid off and do this? Do we want to kind of go in step by step? Then they have to go to their conferences, and then, the athletic directors, and there's a whole process to doing that. But as a coach, I would do those two things. I would feel out what other coaches are doing, and I'd even say, hey, I'm letting go of this student athlete. Can you help her? And then I would say, if you needed to do that, how did you handle this? Right. And a couple of coaches have called me, and the advice I give them is, yes, maybe we rip the Band-Aid off right now because we don't know what's going to happen.
Right.
However, as you move forward through this, there's going to be, an ebb and flow. Like, you got to look every year. Mm-hmm. Do I bring in 4 next year? Because maybe these bottom 4 aren't playing. So I'm going to maybe have to cut them. Do I look at my roster and go, I'm pretty solid, I only have room for 1? But you got to look at it more closely. It's not like you can kind of bring in a good group and then figure out who's on your roster. You're going to have to be much more careful about that.
Well, and then you have the transfer portal.
Right.
So that's kind of full and mixed. So we have freshmen currently in college, right. The transfer portal, and seniors in high school right now are completely impacted, and it's all disrupted. This whole recruiting process coming into this summer that kind of activates June 15th. What advice are we giving to athletes, club coaches that are helping them recruit, navigating this huge change of unknown, or even, I'm going in the transfer portal?
Right. Well, I think number one, if you're in high school, I think you got to get in front of the coaches, right? Like, before, maybe you're in a tournament, but I go down those tournaments and I'm like, okay, everybody's a twin. They all have the same hat, the same glasses, and I'm looking at tournaments and I'm looking at players. I think you've got to go to showcases, you've got to go to clinics, you've got to get in front of that coach, and you have to be very clear. DM them, send video DMs. Like, the high school, you need to be more proactive right now, because coaches are thinking, okay, I don't have time to develop. So I'm going to look into the portal. I kind of am more confident that TCU developed them, maybe they went in the portal, rather than developing the high school players. So I say, high school players, get in front of the coaches, send them DMs, get on it big time. People that are at programs now, I think you need to kind of, if you've got a scholarship and it's going well, maybe stay. Right? That portal's going to be dicey too, because most people aren't going to have room like they do right now. So my advice would be, unless you absolutely must go somewhere else, kind of stay where you are and really improve the program that you're in.
Right. And now, kind of final thoughts on this rule change impact. Do you think all the trickle down is going to make programs stronger across the country? And do you think new beach volleyball programs are going to be added because of it?
Well, I think that's a piece of what the NCAA is thinking, and I think if you talk to a lot of coaches, they believe that. They believe, one, that the trickle down effect will happen. And again, I know 4 or 5 student athletes that were decommitted, that were going to pretty big schools. Well, now they're going somewhere else. So definitely, mid-majors, whatever they are, those players are going to help other programs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right?
And this is something that I talk about with my indoor girls as well, with my 17s team. We're going through the recruiting process this weekend. We're coming into a really big national recruiting tournament. just stay the course. I think it's really easy to get discouraged, especially in the days of social media. And now you're adding on this layer of the rule change, but just stay the course. You're going to have to email coaches multiple times. Didn't Allie Wheeler email you like 15 times?
Minimum.
Minimum. Exactly. And now look at her. She has a few rings under her belt playing for you.
Yeah. And Megan and I were at her wedding dancing on that dance floor with our champagne.
I love
lifelong relationship because she emailed me 15 times. It's absolutely the truth.
I love it. Let's talk about women coaching. It's so important.
Yes.
Why?
Well, I think, okay, let's just go to the technical pieces. Okay, let's start there. We don't even have to go to what we all know women are better at coaching. Just saying. I think it's a different game. You know, I've always said this, there's a different game. And so a woman, in my opinion, technically can teach and feel and understand a woman's game. Maybe just a little bit more than a man, simply because of the mechanics of it. I have seen many men coaches are very successful and very good, but in my opinion, teach a little bit more of the men's style of game. So for me, I think just technically, I really like women that can explain to another woman athlete how to play the game.
Why do you think there hasn't been as many spaces created for women coaches as there were for men?
Why they haven't taken the jobs, or I think, you know, women are the caretakers in the world. Like, let's go indoor. If you're a D1 coach and you're a woman, you're gone a lot, you're traveling a lot, and, you know, you're in that childbearing years, you want children, you have children. You know, I've always said it would be wonderful if there was some kind of legislation that in the budgets you were able to travel, your husband or a babysitter or whatever, so the family unit could stay together more. I think women have such a responsibility of the home fires that they start looking at these jobs and they're like, well, I can't do it now. And then maybe in 10 years when the kids are a little bit older in high school, they can. Then you walk in and the administrator goes, well, what have you been doing for 10 years?
Right.
Raising children? Creating the next president of the United States?
Yeah.
And
Did you see the Tennessee basketball coach for their women's basketball? She had her baby and was back a week later for their game.
Yeah.
That's wild.
Exactly.
Good for her.
Yeah.
Good for her. Yeah. I mean, kudos to you. That's very impressive.
But is that what we want?
Exactly.
Is that what we want? You know, and I don't know if it has to be
that's what she wanted, right?
Right.
Like,
no, I
she
get
made that call.
Yeah, I get that. But legislatively wise, I think, and maybe not even that severe, like department wise, let's have some policies in place that help support women that want to have children and coach and travel and, you know, just all those things. Because think about it, you're traveling all year and you're going to take your 3 children and your husband. Well, there's your salary. You know, it would be nice if that was more supportive. I also think that emotionally, there should always be a woman on your staff, right? Women, girls, young women, they can come up to, not me, but Megan, and say, okay, my boyfriend dumped me, you know, this girl's dating my ex-boyfriend back in high school, and, you know, and a woman coach, in my opinion, can understand that better. Where is, you know, perhaps male coaches would be more like, then maybe you want to hit the ball harder. Get your anger out. You know, I just think there's an understanding there of the differences. And we know, what is it, men are from Mars and women from Venus, or vice versa. You know, there are differences. So that's why I think more women should coach, but I understand why they don't. Like, you know, I don't have children. I have 5,000 children. But for me in coaching, I had that freedom to be able to do all of that. And I think that's different. I think more women that could have a supportive administration, I think more women would go in to coaching. I really do. I just, you know, that's my belief.
And it's interesting because I feel in general, collegiate beach volleyball programs have a lot more female coaches in it. However, I don't really see that so much on the independent professional side. And as people, you know, are getting older, going towards the Olympics and climbing that pyramid, we don't see it as much. And so there is maybe some benefit already at the NCAA with a better structure and salary
Right.
than, working on the pro side, never knowing what your schedule is.
Right. Well, very interesting because I was at the Olympics this summer and they were all men, like different countries, even us. I was really not surprised, but I thought that I would see more female coaches at that high level. And there aren't, and the answer to that, I don't know. That's a whole other ball of wax that, we could probably do another show on because it's a very interesting point. Why don't more women? And then you get to my stage where maybe your kids are grown or whatever, and you have a great relationship with your husband, and now you can start traveling. Do you want to go into that madhouse? Right? Maybe not, because it's a lot. Coaching is a lot, and it's a lot of time and energy.
Right.
So we got to find some balance at a time when women have the time, not the time necessarily, but the energy to be that great leader. And indoor this year, I was
so excited.
I was doing backflips in my living room. Well, not really, maybe a somersault. But
Louisville versus Penn State, first head-to-head female coaches going at it in the NCAA championship.
Right. It was so
something.
exciting. So, maybe we're getting down that path.
And we have a good women's group with Beach Volleyball Women's Coaches Association, where we have a working WhatsApp group and we share those coaching community opportunities and endorse and support each other too. And that has really helped. We know some female coaches that have been promoted out of that effort and that group sharing, saying you can do this and work through it.
Yeah, it's always going to be women supporting women. That's what we need to do. We need to do more of it, I think. I think our group is great and we do a little tiny piece, but I think all women can do a lot more.
Right.
Let's jump to USA international side. In addition to the domestic tour, what do you foresee happening on the domestic side at the pro level? I know that you're removed a little bit from that, but in your opinion, where would you like it to go and what would you like to see?
Okay, so first of all, I, am old school, so I really like the old system, but watching the league this year and some of the heritage, having some athletes try and fight in there, I kind of find it exciting that, okay, we're trying to do something new because we know that old method had not been working. We weren't growing, weren't doing different. And I don't have the numbers, maybe some of you do, but it seemed to me that as the league went along, we did see more spectators. You would hear more people seeing it on television. So it's growing the sport in a different direction, which needed to be done. So that's exciting. I just want to see maybe more opportunities for the college girl that just graduated that, just got 4 rings at SC, be able to break in there. And I'm not sure of that path and if it's clear enough. I'm always an advocate for wild cards and, let's bring somebody in that's unknown, that's did well in college or whatever, to get into the league and not necessarily have to spend 2 years trying to go through qualifiers. That's with the FIVB, they kind of changed that mode too, because it's just a never-ending process. It takes too much time to really jump in. But for me, the change, whatever change it is, I think is good because we, as an organization and as a group, AVP and beach players, we really weren't growing in the direction that, you and I watch it and we're like, this is the best thing ever. Why are we still in the same spot we were 20 years ago? So it's exciting to me that somebody finally said, okay, let's do something different. It's like on the court, saying the serve girl and you're going down 0-1, 0-2. Serve somebody else. Like option, do something. And that's what I like. The AVP finally said, we're doing something different.
Right.
Well, thank you for coming in. And we've touched on a lot of topics here, and we love having you on and hearing your opinion and navigating the Wild West of beach volleyball, collegiate, pro, international. Anything that we didn't touch on that comes to your mind?
No, the only thing is on on this, we'll go back to the original topic. There's a couple of questions that, I want to throw out to the NC2A or somebody who has an answer. Like one on this roster cap, what if somebody gets injured? Do you get to fill that roster, right? So now 19 to 18, let's say it's season ending. So I have a question there that I would like discussion on. 2, in the fall, most sports kind of carry more to get down to a roster size. So is there any wiggle room in there that maybe, well, for us, it's fall off season. Let's just use off season. Is there some room in there where you can have larger, that discussion?
It's almost like a tryout period.
Right. And
Like
then get to your roster size.
That's interesting.
Right. So I think the NC2A and somebody needs to kind of look at this thing. And then, like in the pros, is there an injury reserve? Like you're in season, somebody's injured, they're pulled off, but yet somebody else is on reserve. They go in, that person comes out. Can you go back in?
Almost like a JV squad.
Right.
Interesting.
Right. So those are the questions that I would have to put out for discussion for the coaches and the NC2A and would like to have some answers to.
Yeah, well, we'll tag them in this episode and maybe we'll get some answers from them there. Well, thank you again for coming on.
Much.
It is always so fun chit-chatting with you. Yes, and have so much fun in your upcoming adventures.
Off to Egypt. I'll be doing the King Tut.
There you go. Absolutely. Well,
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, anytime. Thank you guys for watching this episode of Grit. Please make sure to like and subscribe as it helps us here with our show in the studio, push all of this fun information forward to you at home or wherever you may be watching or listening. Keep it gritty out there.
Boom, boom, make that